Hello everybody, we're giving away 100 XRP to somebody in the comment section if we can get 1,000 likes within 24 hours. All you have to do is make sure you press the like button, make sure you are subscribed, and make sure you comment something down below, and that is it. You're automatically entered, and if we hit it, you'll hear the winner tomorrow. Ripple community speculates on China, Russia, India's plan to set up SWIFT rival. Will XRP be involved? And yes, for the people with some keen eyes, they've noticed that this article is from quite a couple of months ago. It is actually from the end of October, yet it is actually still very, very relevant. And the main reason for that is we have been speculating a ton about what type of connections Ripple has to these countries and really what they're up to, what they're doing, right? Are these countries working on their CBDCs to later on still work with SWIFT? And what type of framework are they building? What's going on? And really, this article is very, very relevant because it shows us that it's not necessarily SWIFT that they're relying on in all of this. Even though it is often expected that these older, or more developed organizations like governments and all of that don't want to work with something new like Ripple. Yeah, that's not really the case, right? Because reading through this, Russia, China, and India plan to avoid using SWIFT by connecting their fund transferring systems. Some in the Ripple community believe XRP will be used for liquidity. Well, really, we've been hearing a lot about, at least now part actually about Russia in terms of CBDC, a lot about India working on some regulatory framework, and a ton coming from China in terms of framework and also in terms of CBDC. Going down below here though, let's check it out real quick. As reported by Russia Today, three major players, China, Russia, India, intend to avoid using SWIFT system of funds transferring and create their own network for fast payments by connecting the already existing systems of electronic payments. Some members of the Ripple community hope that the new payment system used between three biggest countries is going to utilize XRP for liquidity. Now, even though I can't say anything about exactly what it will be, what is interesting to see is that a lot of these countries have the connection that they don't want to really work with the US, right? Because in some ways, these are the biggest behemoths in terms of countries, I guess next to the EU as another sector and then the US as the fifth one. They're all so big and they all could manage a lot on their own. However, having connections will make them a lot better. Now, you would think they would use just SWIFT because, well, it's the general standard and it's not US because it's Belgium-ish. However, again, that's not what they're up to. Now, Russia has been developing something for the longest time, the SPFS. However, China has been working on something and India has been working on something. They're all working on some system of payments. Yet the problem is, and they're saying here India has not launched a similar project yet. They're working on it, but maybe it doesn't have a name on it yet. Here, local engineers are working to build it. It's already being built. We all know it. It's logical. The problem is, what exactly are they going to be using, right? Because, you have SPFS, you have CIPS, you have another Indian one. Yet, if you have a payment system, you can't just have 10 payment systems and then really completely working with each other. Like, that's going to create a lot of issues and a lot of friction. Because if it's not all being connected through one, you're going to have a lot of problems. So only the thing I can see here is that they either will go for a lot of different ones and then, then connect them through something like XRP, which is something I'm thinking about here. Or they're going to be adopting something new once they have their own framework. Because thinking about this, let's say every country had their own system. How are you going to then arrange it between two countries, right? That would have to be a link between every single country separately, because otherwise these systems won't work with each other, right? Think about this way, right? If you have your own bank, you're like, for example, your name is John and another friend of yours is called Paul, and you have a bank and he has a bank. How are you going to send money to him if you run on, for example, Windows and he runs on Linux? You get, or let's say, for example, Mac and Windows. You guys have no idea how to send it to each other because you're on completely different types of servers. You're different systems. You don't know how to interact. Like, what are you going to do there? So if you don't know Paul, you can't automatically send it to him thinking he's just, Windows like you are, because you're not the same thing. You have to change some stuff. And that's the same here with CIPS and SPFS and all of that. they would have to, if all countries were to do it, separately connect with all other parties to get something done, right? And that's also why a lot of people would like to stay on Swift, because it's so simple, the connections are already there. But I believe that's also one of the parts why Ripple is working with Swift indirectly through this new Swiss banking giant partnership. Payment solution company IBIS, or sometimes called IBS, Management Associates Inc., Ito RippleNet through Swissroot service. The connection allows customers to connect to several banks through a single secure channel. Now, of course, whenever I'm talking about all of this connecting everywhere without having mutual connections, people often think about multi-hop, which is something I'm thinking about as well. However, I haven't looked inside it too much to understand how to put the connections all into here. However, what may be seen is not this Barrel Guy 123 stuff, none of that. However, the fact that they don't want to work with Swift, and we all know that Ripple can work next to Swift. They're not necessarily replacing it, by the way, which is something they've said more often in different interviews and things like that. Here is an example for that. Ripple and Swift are not competitors, but can be very complementary, according to Ripple's head of global banking, Marjan Delatin. Speaking to GTR in an onstage interview at the Blockchain Summit in London last week, Delatin, who has previously worked for Swift, was asked whether she considers Ripple a competitor to the decades-old payment network. Quote, "We're two different things. We're not replacing Swift, as Swift has its own value," she answered, adding that banks could take advantage of both. Delatin joined the blockchain company in 2017, having worked at Swift for 10 years, most recently in charge of selling its global payment innovation GPI service. So, well, yeah, we all saw that the mutual connection has now been established. They're working together right now, and it's not just a separate thing that you have to choose. So they're working together on the system already. But then the question is, all right, if they don't want to work with Swift, then what would they be working with? Will it just be like these three countries are going to have their own payment rails and every other country is going to have something different? Or what could it be? And that got me thinking, like, it would be so beneficial if they were to hop onto Ripple, because think about this one, right? At this point, let's say they were to go for the very friction and difficult approach of having all direct connections. That would mean China would have to set up a connection to Russia, which would have to set up a connection to India, and go on with that circle. They would have to connect to each other in like a three-way type of system. However, for example, if they want to cop on another country, like for example, what we're gonna put there, like just name a country, guys. When you're recording, it becomes a little bit more difficult. New Zealand. They want to hop on to New Zealand as well. All of a sudden, instead of just three having to connect, which is just China to Russia, China to India, Russia to India, then once more, you have everything already then. But then also a fourth one which has to connect to all three of these, then a fifth one has to connect to all four of them, then the sixth one has to connect to all six. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and more strange because, well, more connections need to be made and the more friction you can get there. Wouldn't it be a lot more beneficial if instead of having all their own systems, they would have some sort of intermediary system, or at least a system which can either, if they want to have some internal affairs, that's okay. If they want to use these systems for their internal messaging, that's all good. The moment we're starting to talk about cross-border remittances is when it starts to get a little bit difficult, as I just said, because you need those connections. If there were to be a player which has no one side, which is not necessarily from the US, as again, Ripple might be US company. However, XRP is decentralized, and I'm talking about XRP being the intermediary thing here. And maybe they would not, be too sad to use Ripple as a company. For now, I would say China's not going to be working with Ripple too much because, well, there's a big Cold War going on between China and US. But eventually that might finish, And eventually it could be that Ripple has expanded their ODL service so much where you don't really need to work with the Ripple net system. Maybe they're going to split it up a little bit where it's going to be a lot more apparent that you're just using something decentralized like XRP here. However, ODL is still Ripple's service. Or Ripple's, I guess, how would you call it? Ripple's service, let's call it. So from that perspective, you can't really back down from using something US. However, the idea still stands. You're using something decentralized. You don't need any, common connections. You don't need to be connected in any way, shape, or form because XRP can do that all the way on its own. And you don't really need any connection because the connection is automatically made there already. And again, that's talking about XRP. You could also talk about Ripple, the messaging platform itself, if you just want the, the non-XRP version. However, a lot of these statements have made me go and point in this direction because of the fact that it's so frictionful and it's so difficult to get connections going if you don't really trust each other, right? Because that's the same thing that's going on with the US and China right now. US and China, I don't think they'll ever set up a connection like this, even though if we think back a couple decades when the connection was made in terms of wires for like the phone calls, right? from every single place to Washington. All those phone call lines, the direct lines and all of that were made. Nobody would really expected that because why would you, right? You don't trust each other, so I get that stuff. But that stuff was mostly done for the negative sides of like war and all of that. Now with China, I don't think they will get connections to the U.S. in the sense that they will be using something really, which is like, let's say for example, the U.S. government were to think of their own settlement system, and China has their own, like we just saw. I don't think they will connect with each other. Just having a real partnership to be able to work with each other. I think there would have to be something in the middle so they don't have to touch each other directly, because I don't think they would like it. Same for getting those pairs on ODL. Just the U.S. dollar and the Chinese yuan. I don't know. I don't think they would match so well. So there would have to be something in the middle to make sure that they don't have to interact with each other at all. Which is again multi-hop in a kind of a certain way, but I'm not considering that today. China is to launch its own digital currency. We all know about that, but still, even when we're talking about CBDCs and digital currencies on their own, even if they're going to call it China coin, US coin, you can't just automatically have the other one still, right? And even in this case here, like the bank coins, like the US coins officially, even though they might have it all, they still need to transfer it over to different ones because not the whole world's going to use China coin, right? Not the whole world's going to be using US coin, or not the whole world's going to be using JPM coin, and so forth and so on. You still need to change them over, and unless there are direct pairs, which can be really, really difficult, it can be so that everything just gets switched over to XRP and then XRP into the new asset, which I think would be the easiest system. Because otherwise, as I just said with the whole situation here with the China, Russia, and India, you'd have to create individual pairs for literally every single connection. Because if you want to change your Chinese yuan, your digital Chinese yuan, to Indian rupees, you'd have to have that direct connection. Otherwise, how are you going to do it, right? What type of thing can you think about there if you don't have a connection? Then you would have to go from Chinese yuan to Russian rubles and then into Indian rupees, which is very cumbersome, very irritating and all of that, possibly, because you're going to have to trust another currency, another country's currency, which you probably don't want to, right? So having XRP in the middle, I think could change up the whole system because you have something decentralized here and you don't have to trust any other country or company or things like that, right? You're using XRP, which is decentralized. That was just a little bit of my thoughts. And also, Coinbase customers lose 940,000 XRP plus to YouTube scammers, Explorer has found. Founder of XRP Plor or XR Plor, Thomas Silkier, stated that initiators of fake XRP giveaways on YouTube have increased their profits since Saturday from 97,000 to 940,000 XRP. And since YouTube is not doing anything against this, I'm thinking about starting. Oh no, just kidding here. But it's very freaking lucrative, man. So to a certain degree, I don't blame these guys because YouTube and a couple of these other ones like Coinbase are all allowing the opportunities for people to get scammed. And look here, right? So from August 16th, at some point it was about 230,000. Later, August 16th, it was 360,000. Then somewhere, I guess later on the August 16th, it was 830,000. Then somewhere on August 17th here, it's 940,000. And thus, the rate at which this is going is really, really, really crazy and insane, and has a lot more severity to it than ever before. There's a lot more pressure on it now to get this fixed than before because of the amount of money that is going on in this case here. 940,000 XRP is not no joke. It's not no small feat. And thus, I really think it's like a now or never type of scenario, right? Either there's going to be millions and millions of dollars lost in these scams, and YouTube's going to have a big-ass problem with all of its hate on its head, or they're going to do something about it. Now, even though I think, to a certain degree, it's like they're just scamming people who are too stupid for this space at this point, I can't see it that way. It's not the right thing to do, because a lot of these people are just trusting of the official channel. They trust Ripple, and they're like, man, these guys are holding such a cool action, because, it's not that crazy for a store to give you something in returns of using the system. However, a 2-to-1 giveaway that's going on, honestly speaking, if you've ever gamed online, you know that that's too good to be true and a little bit strange. However, some people haven't grown up with that, Just think about your grandma or your mother. Maybe she's, elderly, maybe she's 85 years old. You just gave her some XRP. She's like, man, I can double my money because of this company that you told me about. Again, your son is given away in their action. You're like, damn, let me do that. Okay, maybe that's a little bit too old. Let me go for 60, 65. Somebody's just really capable of doing everything. Yeah, whenever I'm thinking about that, I'm like, yeah, these guys are going for the vulnerable, and maybe some of the young ones who are just too good trusting. How do you say that? Too ignorant? No, that's not ignorant. Naive is the word I was looking for. Yeah, I just don't know what to do about it. All we can do is tell each other, but it's a big mess. And they're doing it all the time, guys. Whenever I open YouTube, it's one of the first ones that I see because they're big ass live streams with 40,000 viewers, and so they do pretty well. There's a lot of people watching them genuinely because basically what they do is they hack these very established YouTube accounts through some phishing mails most often. Like, for example, a phishing mail where it's like, you got a copyright strike. And these guys are like, damn, I got what? They press it, and once they pressed it, their accounts are just automatically just messed up because I don't really understand how to explain it because I watched a couple videos seeing how it all works out. It's just one click and you're done. You're just messed up. Unless you have 2FA, I think then it's a little bit more difficult, but they will probably just SIM swap you or bypass that in a certain degree and fashion. They know about it. They know what to do. They're taking down 500,000 follower channels and all of that. And then once these channels are like going to YouTube to say, hey, I've been hacked, YouTube's like, oh, we know what? We'll get back to you in a couple of weeks. We're a little bit busy. So, just leave your report here. We'll check it out possibly. And that's, again, where another part of the friction comes to life, where it's just not only is it annoying that your account got hacked for you, it's very annoying for the customers and for the people who follow you because they all of a sudden think you're live streaming under a new name, Ripple XRP, which is very confusing for the followers and very confusing for the people who don't know the account. But also just very confused with people who are into XRP and are following this account already. Let's say, for example, it was PewDiePie who all of a sudden would be hacked. Now, that would be a little bit more obvious because it's 107 million followers that all of a sudden see that, which would be a little strange. However, just think about the amount of people that would watch that, right? And I'm thinking here, YouTube would, of course, be a lot quicker to respond to a call from such a huge guy. But still, sometimes there's accounts with 1.5 million followers or subscribers that still get hacked and don't get, back in like a couple of days. I think sometimes it takes like a week or so before those guys get their accounts back. You would think an account with 1.5 million followers would do a lot more for their best content creators, but I just don't understand exactly how that platform works. I also don't know if you get a personal guy over at YouTube, and I also don't know if you get some other login method if you get 10 million plus subscribers and all of that, because I would think you're a little bit more special and a little bit more secure in that sense, where YouTube can just dedicate one person to you because you make a huge amount of money. That's what I'm thinking about here. If you have 10 million followers, I'm assuming you made at least $1 million, where YouTube can really spare $2,000 a month for an employee to look at you, and for example, he can manage, let's say 10, maybe even 100 people that have 10 million plus. I don't even know how many. Just monitoring their accounts all the time and just replying to their comments and all of that. Just the really important guys, because they're taking in a lot of money. So I would say that that's not something they can't do. However, again, the more further we go on with these things, the more that YouTube has to do to just help us out. But I'm also understanding, where they can't monitor all these ads all the time. The only problem is they have an ad verification process where they have to, approve your ad. But that's not done manually. That's done with automatics, with robotics or with AI, where they notice like, this isn't it. Let's approve it. So I'm wondering, where can they make sure? Because if you have a little bit of a crazy thumbnail, they block it instantly. Right. I for example, once had a big picture with somebody, laying there with somebody's foot on his head. Not even a really, it's not that crazy because it's just an acted one. It's a stock photo. And it was just really not harmful looking in any way, shape, or form. It was really just kind of peaceful, even though that wouldn't say so from the title or what I just called it. I would say that they would know how to, find this type of stuff, right? The only problem is maybe you're going to delete a lot of these thumbnails and videos as well that are just legitimate things, because how are you going to differentiate between a giveaway that's fake and a giveaway that's legit? Well, how are you going to make that difference? Which really comes down to manual effort, which I think YouTube does not have, which they should invest in, yes, but they don't have at this point. And I don't think they really care enough to do it either because it doesn't hurt them. These scammers pay a lot of money, I think. I think they pay a huge premium for these ads, as again, that's maybe why YouTube is keeping them around. And in this case here, they're the paying customers. We are not. We're just the lonely consumers, and they're the customers. So yeah, I can understand why YouTube is siding with them to a certain degree. I don't support it, but I can understand why they're doing that. And by the way, XRP is doing pretty damn well. That's nice. That's pretty nice to see. But guys, thank you all for watching this video. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you press the like button and subscribe. And I would definitely see you guys again in another crypto video. Report these scams whenever you can.